Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. This is the version of the introduction you get without me doing a massive sneeze and peeking the microphone. So today's video, we're going to play a game. When I say we're going to play a game, I'm going to play a game, alright? I'm going to attempt to talk about the subject matter that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to try and be very subtle, use plenty of innuendo, and hope that YouTube doesn't give me a gold medal next to my video, if you know what I mean. I'd rather have a green medal. But I think it's going to be nigh on impossible, but let's see how it gets on, shall we? So, Cyberpunk 2077. It's now coming out, of course, next year. We were hoping it's going to come out end of this year, but it's not. It's around about, what, May time? I think. Maybe March. Maybe a month beginning with Ma. But it's coming out next year, and it's highly anticipated, you know, especially fans of CD Projekt Red, fans of the Witcher series. We'll talk about the Witcher very shortly indeed. But some more information has come out about the game, mainly about the length, ladies, of the main storyline, how much it will be boosted by what they class as main side quests and also not so important side quests. And the question which a lot of people do ask, and hey, it's fair enough. CD Projekt Red make adult games for adult people. Geralt in the Witcher series lives in a very violent world. He is a witcher. He hunts monsters for a living. His body is covered in scars. His face has got plenty of them as well. He kind of lives fast in every department of the game. And to be perfectly honest with you, I can't blame him. I can't blame him. If I was living in that world doing his job, I would be tupping those U's like it was going out of fashion. And the Witcher series actually has over... I tell you what, it's a killer doing the research for this. The Witcher series actually has over 50. Witcher 1, Witcher 2, Witcher 3 combined. Has over 50 romantic scenes. Scenes of a romantic nature. And that was the question was asked about Cyberpunk 2077. So we're going to get into all of that in the vid. So first things first, this is coming from PCGamer.com. Cyberpunk 2077 will have motion captured. Nookie. So let's just get into the other stuff. CD Projekt Red said during a recent community event in Warsaw, a Polish company, that its upcoming RPG Cyberpunk 2077 won't be quite as long as The Witcher 3, but will make up for it with greater degree of replayability. It also revealed a little more about the game's scenes, which are apparently been given plenty of attention to ensure that they satisfy all customers. So, to say Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be not quite as long, ladies, as The Witcher 3, isn't saying that it's going to be a short game at all. If you played The Witcher 3, and I think you're just talking base game here. If you're just playing base game, main storyline, side quests, etc., you know, side stories, there was something in the line of 200 hours of gameplay, which was crazy. I remember when The Witcher 3 came out, and there were websites, this drove me nuts. There were game sites complaining, oh, it's too long. No, it's not. It's not. The main storyline wasn't 200 hours, you moron. Everything, if you wanted to do everything in the game. So it gave people so much scope for exploration, finding things, finding little stories, engaging with little characters, little villages, all that good stuff. And it was good stuff. And I did a playthrough, and I think in my playthrough, first time, I notched up, before any of the DLCs came out, I notched up around about 150 hours of gameplay. That was incredible, and I loved it. I absolutely bloody loved it, to say the least. But main storyline, still pretty deep. Oh, ladies. It was still pretty deep and long. Sorry, I keep using too much of that. So Cyberpunk 2077 not being quite as long, I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. The playtime comparison is based solely on the main story and major side quests, according to the report, and players will be able to squeeze out more of it by taking on smaller side quests and encounters they'll run into throughout the game. The studios also said that Cyberpunk's side quests will be more branching and intertwined than they were in The Witcher 3, and that choices players make will have a much greater impact on plot, progression, and outcomes, which is presumably where the increased replayability comes from. So it looks like there's loads of different avenues for your character to go down, stories, people, and all that sort of jazz. But ultimately, it is a first-person game, but ultimately it's an RPG just done through a first-person shooter narrative. So with that in mind, let's just push on to the next part. Now, as I mentioned, there are 50 plus, about 54, 55, somewhere along those sort of lines, romantic scenes in the Witcher games combined. The first Witcher game, I think, has the most. The first Witcher game in itself is around about 22, 23, something daft like that. But the first Witcher game was very different because it was very coy when it came to the scenes. You would engage the person, and instead of showing anything or seeing anything, you would get a little bit of romantic music, and then there would be a card of that person that would appear on the screen in varying degrees of undress. You know, sometimes they would be clothed but provocative, other times they would be showing the boys and all that kind of stuff. But it was very coy, you know. The Witcher 2 did away with that, and The Witcher 2 actually decided to have scenes which were more realistic and would kind of fit into any sort of sword and board, you know, sword and spell, whatever you want to call them, fantasy type of film. So they had their position, ladies. What was quite interesting, though, is they dealt with it in varying degrees. Some would just be you're visiting your local house. Others would be with a main character that you had an actual relationship with. And others would be side characters that would sprout here or there. And sometimes they're dealt with seriously, and sometimes they're dealt with a bit of humour, or sometimes the scene would be dealt with seriously, and then you would get the humour tagged on at the end with something completely different. For example, and no, you're not going to see anything. In The Witcher 2, Geralt and Triss get caught underground at the Elven Baths. And Geralt's like, hello, we're kind of trapped for a bit, let's have a bit of funsies. So Triss is on board, and she does this very sensual magic which removes the garments from her body, and then dives into the pool and, you know, looks all feminine and, you know, hey, Geralt. And then he's just like, well, a white wolf on heat, I suppose. And he's just trying to rip his boots off, as you can see, and get in. And then it ends up with Triss dragging him into the pool, and then they get it on. But afterwards, there's a group of, I don't know, mercenaries or something who appear at the top, and one of them starts to spin the tale of the two lovers and in the Elven Baths and this statue that was erected. in their honor and stuff. And that they say that this place is haunted or magic or something like that. And if you listen very carefully, you can still hear the moans of blah, blah, blah. And they're all like laughing at how daft it is. And they walk off. And the last person, this dwarf, just before he goes, he just kind of pricks his ear and he hears Triss giving it lungs. And he's just like, bugger me. And then leaves. I liken it very much to the Roger Moore, let's just go with, instead of a time, let's go with a person. With the Roger Moore James Bond scenes at the end of his James Bond, the end of Moonraker. What's 007 doing? And then you'd have Q not looking at the screen, realising what was going on. I think he's attempting re-entry, sir. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Bum! Can't have that now, because, SJWs. Heterosexuality's the devil! And all that kind of stuff. And another funny example was one that was a little bit more out of place, but kind of really worked. There was this, you had this scene where Geralt could let Triss go in The Witcher 3. You can let Triss walk out of the game, walk out of your life. Or you could fight for her. You could choose Triss, as the one that you want to ultimately end up with instead of Yennefer. And you tell her that you don't want her to leave, that you want her to stay, that you love her, and she still kind of like leaves, and then you speak to District, and she comes back. And so you go somewhere secluded to speak. It's this top of the lighthouse. And you have this very sort of earnest talk about her. She's like, I want to stay, but where do you see us? Where do you see us in 5 years' time, Geralt? And then, you get to choose how you respond to that. And then Triss would say, I love this. I like this Geralt that's not afraid to open up to me. I like this Geralt who tells me what he feels, what he wants. It's a very intimate, but not in that sort of way. Then it turns into that sort of intimacy. And then while it's going on, it pans away, and you see two guys on a ship, on a ship near the lighthouse. And because of what's going on, the beacon of the lighthouse is flashing because, And one of them's just like, Sir! Sir, we're getting a message through from the lighthouse. Quick, it's code, write it down. And he's like writing down the code, and he's like, what's it saying? He's like, H, L, V. And it just doesn't make a lick of sense. And it's like, well, it must be code. We need to translate it. So again, it has that sort of Roger Moore-esque level of humour. So they deal with it in different ways. But what is different from the Witcher series as opposed to the Cyberpunk game is Cyberpunk is first person. So as for those scenes, CD Projekt Red has previously said that they'd be seen from the first person perspective, as with all other cutscenes in the game, in order to avoid breaking immersion. During the Q&A, the studio said that it's all done via a lot of mocap. Hello! I knew I should have been an actor. Which should be interesting, yes. Because all these scenes we see from the third-person perspective. We see it as if we're watching a movie, Although we control Geralt and all that sort of stuff. Geralt's not us. Geralt is Geralt of Rivia. And we can vicariously adventure through Geralt, whatever he does in the game. But ultimately, it's a character of his own volition. Whereas with Cyberpunk 2077 being first person, we can sort of channel a lot more of our own personality into that, and we can sort of have that connection that it's us in the game. With most first person's games, it's much more intimate for the player involved. So to have these romantic scenes done from that perspective, I mean, don't expect it to be nah brazzers, alright? It's, they're not making a prawn sandwich here, folks. But it is going to be quite interesting to see what scenarios they put the character in for the various scenes, because unlike The Witcher, Geralt is heterosexual. Weirdos, calm down. It happens. People are. His proclivity, of course, is women. Whereas with Cyberpunk, I think you have the scope to choose. So you could be male and choose male. You could be female and choose female. You could be, male and choose female. So I think you have more scope to choose how your character would behave in those sort of situations. God, I'm trying so hard to not get a gold medal here. I'm not really sure how the developers are going to combine motion capture FPS, which stands for first person, not first person shooting, by the way, without setting off the alarms at the ESRB. Well, we already know the ESRB don't give a flying fuck. They literally don't give a flying about anything as long as they get paid by the companies. But if nothing else, it emphasizes that CD Projekt Red isn't going to dodge the bits with tasteful strategic fade-outs. And I think actually that's quite important for all these sort of little bits of joking that I'm doing. When a game is presented properly for an adult, one thing that I've always heralded CD Projekt Red for, particularly with the Witcher series, because obviously that was their main brand, was the fact that they made a game for an adult and they treat you like an adult. Whereas there would be games, I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade here, but it's just a fact. BioWare, up until Dragon Age Inquisition, didn't. They would say this is an adult game for an adult. It's going to have adult stuff in terms of gore, violence, But when it came to the romance, it would all be tasteful positioning of the camera, stuff always hidden, can't see. It was just like, oh, now you want to treat us like a child, but you're saying it's a game, it's rated as an adult game, but you want to play this like, it's some sort of soap opera on midday on a week from Monday to Friday on CBS. Or whatever it may want to be. My God, I've talking for a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, as is great at English. Spoken for a long time here about Nookie. But yes, it's good that if you are making a game for an adult, treat them like an adult. If you're making a game for a kid, make it for a kid. If you're making it for a teenager, make it for a teenager. But if your audience is adult, treat them like adults. We've all done it. We know what's going on. We know what bits are where and who's got what and where they go. Sometimes where they don't. But they, that's how it is. So it's going to be very intriguing to see how this actually turns out. I guess we'll find out in a few months' time. So I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do get a thumbs up. Whichever orifice you choose. And also subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Links there in the description box down below. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care. Bye for now.